I'm still quite sick. You're going to have to deal with my beautiful croaky voice for the entire video. I hope you don't mind. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel La Fraise. I'm Noémie and today we are going to make together this bag or this bag, and Milo is bringing me a toy so I can play with him. Wrong timing, Milo, wrong timing. This is the medium-sized version. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger, and this is the mini version, which is the one that matches the very well-known bag that is sold by a well-known brand, if you catch what I'm saying. Okay, Milo, don't let me bother you. So this is the difference in size for the two of them, if you kind of see the difference between the two, and if you take into account that this one is the size you know and this one is its big brother. So what are we going to see today? We're going to see how to make this bag. We are going to see the optional pockets like so, which are also inspired by the ready-to-wear option pockets, and we are also going to make, if you take that option, a zipped-in pocket in the lining. So in this tutorial you will see how to make the base shape of this bag, and in the option you have the first pocket, the zipped pocket. You also have an option to make it waterproof. This one is, I live in Belgium, I need the waterproof version, so if you want it waterproof there's an option for that as well. And you can either have an adjustable strap like mine one here, or a fixed strap like this. So this one doesn't have any buckle or hardware, and it means that, you know, it's just a bit more convenient. I don't know, I quite like the no adjustment option, but I wanted to give you the options for adjustment as well. And you can also have either a strap that's made out of fabric like so you can see the strap is matching the bag, or a store-bought strap. So all of those options are in this tutorial. Yeah, it's been quite a lot. In the waterproof version, you are not going to use interfacing because the waterproof fabric is going to give a little bit of extra stiffness that's going to allow for your bag to have a proper shape. But if you make a non-waterproof version like this one, you are going to need to interface some of your pieces to make sure that the bag has a bit of shape. Otherwise, it's just, you know, a thin cotton and it's not going to hold its shape really well. So just a little heads up that you are going to need interfacing or a waterproof fabric to complete your bags, but you will see everything in the material requirements right now. I won't read all of the numbers to you because you can see them on the screen. I think the best thing is that whether you're making the mini or the medium in imperial measurements or metrics, you pause the video and look at the ones you need, but I shall give you a few explanations. So you first have the first sheet here, which shows you what you need in your main fabric and your lining, and this is to make all of the shell of the bag, really the exterior, and that is what you can't compromise on, because if you don't have those fabrics here, you don't have a bag basically. There's no outside of your bag and you can't even start. Just a note, the second piece of fabric you have to cut, so that's the long flat one, and it's the one that is going to be the bottom of the bag, and that one I have indicated a length that is a little bit longer than what you need, and that is because depending on the curve you're going to draft, it's going to look a little bit different. So I wanted to make sure you have enough fabric and that we can cut it to size when we get to that. You will need a zipper, some bias tape that matches the fabric. You can either make it yourself or you can buy some. You will need some interfacing, you will need a strap, and you will need the buckles and adjusters. If you want a slip pocket, you will need an extra piece of fabric. The same for the zip pocket, which then obviously also includes a zipper. And if you want a waterproof bag, you need an additional waterproof fabric. It can be kind of ugly if you want to. It doesn't really matter because it is going to be inside your bag anyway. You're not going to see it in the end. But I would recommend a waterproof fabric that is still quite soft. Some are really plasticky and crunchy, and I think if you use one of those when you are going to use your bag, you're literally going to hear the plastic crunching when you move the bag. So I would just be careful with the type of waterproof fabric you are using. I'm using a waxed cotton, so it's a cotton that is covered in a thin layer of wax. So it's not fully waterproof, but it helps. If you want to make a fabric strap like the one I have on the small bag I have shown you, you will need a piece of fabric that is 10 centimeters wide, but for the length of the fabric, I have used 1 meter for my small blue bag. So if you like the look of that, you can use 1 meter. But if you want it any longer, I would really suggest kind of using a measuring tape and saying on yourself how long you want it and what you want, and that will inform you on the length you should cut. And if at this point you're thinking, wow, she has made so many instructions for this and so much math, converting everything in medium and imperial and everything, feel free to tip me a coffee. There's a link down below and it's very much appreciated if you find this tutorial useful. Hi there, so you are going to grab a piece of paper and we are now going to draft the front of your bag. So we're going to create something like this. Here I have the mini already cut out and I'm going to show you how to create this while I'm making the medium. Even though I'm going to make this one, it's not changing anything for you guys. The technique is going to be exactly the same. The only thing is that the square you're going to trace on your piece of paper, for the mini, you're going to need a square of 28 centimeters on 17 centimeters. So 28 on 17, that's 11 inches on 6.5 inches. That's 11 on 6.5. And for the medium size, we're going to do 33 centimeters on 21. So 33, 21, and in inches, that gives us 13 inches on 8.25. So 13, 8.25. We're going to start by marking the middle. It's easier for me because I have see-through paper. There you are. I have marked the middle to help me with my drafting. What I'm going to do is mark about a generous centimeter down here the middle, and that is 3/8 of an inch right here. And then I'm going to already create the curve here. So I freehand everything. You can use French curve, the curved ruler. So the way I'm doing this, I'm drafting both sides. And then what I will do in the end is choose the side I prefer, fold my piece of paper into like this and cut the side I prefer. This way I can at the same time see both sides and see kind of the general shape of the bag and if I like it. But then at the same time, when I cut it, it is going to match, because right now obviously I didn't make it match perfectly. And you know what? I think I'm going to take it just a touch lower. With the mini, I did do 1 centimeter, 3/8 of an inch, and that was perfect. Here I think I'm going to go a little bit more curvy like this. And then I'm going to want to create the curve of the bag going from here to here. I'm going to use my trusty plates. Sorry, the dishwasher has so much lime in. This plate was big enough for the small bag, but I'm going to need to upgrade to a bigger plate for the second bag. It's also something you can just freehand, to be honest, but you know, it's always nice to have a little help to create the curve. You can obviously also use a French curve, all of those beautiful tools that we have, but I wanted to show you, I'm gonna freehand this one and see, kind of feel like letting my hand go loose. And when I look at it, I find it a touch too round here, so I'm going to take it in, but this is really preference. If you are happy with just using the plate and have a perfect curve, here you are. I think I like that shape a little bit better. So I'm going to just mark this so I know this is not right. And now I'm going to not cut quite yet, because we're first going to add our seam allowance. So my top tip is to add the seam allowance. I'm going to show you how right now. And then afterwards, after you've cut all of the pieces that require seam allowance, you can recut it on this original line we traced here. And that's going to be your markings for your interfacing, because the interfacing, we don't want the seam allowance. It makes things a little bit too bulky. To add the seam allowance, I do recommend using a set square if you have one. If you don't, you can use any measuring tape and add it this way and kind of mark all along. This is the side we are cutting, so this is the side I'm marking. So again, 3/8 of an inch is going to be the seam allowance we have for the entire project. And then we are simply going to connect the dots and create our final cut line. Sorry, and then I'm cutting that side to make things nice and easy for myself. Another way, if you have a set square, is to place your marking point. So here it's 1 centimeter, 3/8 of an inch, and go like this. And this is actually more the proper way to add a seam allowance. And to be honest, if you have one of those seam allowance circles that I've seen going on the fold line, good for you. They look so much more nice to use, so much quicker. So this is how you add your seam allowance. So again, I'm going to finish my shape. I think I don't even need to connect the lines. I'm going to be able to follow that while I cut, but obviously mark it as much as you need so that you are comfortable when you cut your shape. So I didn't do this on purpose, but this way you see it's possible. So now I'm going to cut this way around, and I'm going to cut along this mark and then on this side for the next seam allowance. And that gives us our bag shape. So when I'm going to want to cut the interfacing, I'm going to do the same, refold it, cut along this line on the other side for the other line. Sorry, that makes it harder. But this way you have something that's perfectly symmetrical, and for comparison, that's the size of the mini compared to the size of the medium. Okay, so here is everything we need to start making this project. So I will quickly run you through everything, but normally you saw all of the sizes on the previous screens. We have the front and back in the main fabric, in the lining, and you either have it also in the interfacing that you are going to make without seam allowance, and that you are going to interface on the inside here, so leaving 1 centimeter of seam allowance all along. This, you can interface this all the way to the edges, so the full thing. If, like me, you are making a waterproof version, you're going to have the front in first this main fabric here, in your lining fabric, front and back, and in your waterproof fabric, front and back. So this one you cut exactly to the same size as that one. Second, you have the bottom of the bag, and again you have it in the main fabric interface if you are in the interfacing club, lining and waterproof layer. And I forgot, you need 4 of those and 4 of those. They're important, don't forget them. Next, you are going to have a little bit of bias tape that's matching your lining. So in my case, I actually cut my bias tape directly into my lining, but feel free to buy store-bought if that's easier for you. You're going to need a zipper, a strap. I really like 1.5 inches, so that's 38 millimeters. But if you want something that's closer to our inspiration bag, you can actually use 3 centimeters, so 1.25 inches. But I personally like a thicker strap. I fill my bag very, very heavy, so I find it more comfortable with a thicker strap. I went a little bit crazy. You can have something a little bit more sensible if you want to. And if you are making your own strap out of fabric like this, I will also give you instructions later on when we get to that. I have buckles and a slider for my strap. That is something that's optional. If you don't want it, you can also just have your strap. That is for the normal pocket, that is for the zipper pocket, and that is all we need. Let's get started. The very first step is interfacing these pieces and that piece if you are interfacing your bag. If you are using a waterproof fabric like I am, it's the moment we're going to attach it to our main fabric. We don't attach it to the lining because if you have the zipper pocket in the lining, we want everything that's in that pocket to be also nicely protected. So let's get those pieces and baste them together. To add the waterproof fabric, if you think you want the waterproof side to be towards the outside, so this is the right side of my fabric and I'm putting wrong side against right side. So this way the waterproof side is going to look towards the outside of the bag. And after those are sewn together, we basically treat them as one piece. They become like one piece. And I'm going to stitch all around at 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. So my seam allowance is 1 centimeter. So if I go at half a centimeter in, I'm basically going within the seam allowance. So it doesn't matter what stitches I'm doing. You can even do it in bright pink, it doesn't matter. So if your seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch, I would try to go at like 1/8 of an inch, 2 max, because obviously you don't want to go past your seam allowance. So we're going to go all around this, same for these pieces, and attach everything together so that your fabric, which is like this, is now waterproof with its secret second layer. This is purely personal preference. I know that the bag we are getting our inspiration from, the wales of the fabric I put straight up like this. I personally don't like something too symmetrical. It always bugs me. So I have cut my fabric a little bit on the bias, and I really like how it looks. I think it's so pretty like this. I think the bag is going to be so much prettier like this than how it is in the ready to wear. However, on the bias, everything could move and shift. It doesn't matter, however, because this is either going to be interfaced or lined with a waterproof fabric, which is very sturdy. So yes, this is a bit risky to cut a piece on the bias, but we are going to make it very sturdy straight away, so nothing to worry about. Mine is even a little bit stretchy cross grain, but again, attaching it to the other piece of fabric is going to help with this. So your pieces are either interfaced or basted together. So you have the 3 pieces that are now ready. If you have a sticker, like a little brand thing that you want to put at the front of your bag, this is the moment to sew it. I'm going to put mine inside, so I'll show you that a little bit later. But if you have a little name tag or anything you want to put, this is the right time to do it before we attach the lining. So do that now. And now we are going to attach all the optional pockets. So if you are not making pockets in your bag, you can skip those chapters and go straight to the next parts. So welcome to the optional part of the video. We are going to start with the normal pocket. And the normal pocket is the one that is in our inspiration ready to wear bag. So it's just a little pocket you can slide things in your bag. So remember, you have the zipped pocket and the pocket here. So to make this pocket, you are going to grab the piece of fabric you have cut for this, and you are going to press it into to create a flap like this. After you've pressed this, simply top stitch along this line here. So at 1 or 2 millimeters, so really hairline stitching here. It's kind of to maintain your fold in place. This is what it looks like. So my lining is very heavily patterned, so I just went ahead and kept the same thread. If you have a lining that's very different, for example, in my blue bag, you've seen that the lining is pink, I would change the thread so that it matches the lining. So this way it looks really extra, because you don't want on a white lining a dark blue thread. It would show very strongly and wouldn't be as nice. So this is what you have now. What you want to do is to align the sides and then to align the bottom at the bottom of the curve here. What we're going to do now is start here. You can measure where the exact middle is and you can do whatever you want, but I mean, I'm gonna eyeball it and go straight down. And to make sure it's very secure, I'm going to do one line and then just a millimeter next to it, another line. So just 2 lines next to one another. Pin all around before you sew your line. You don't want anything to shift. So this is what the 2 top stitching lines look like, and it's nice and secure. So now I'm gonna flip this over. I've already prepared it, and I have put pins to be able to sew around the curve. So what we're going to do is flip this like this, and first sew it from the center middle all around here, and then sew it from here all around like this within the seam allowance. The reason why I don't do it in one go is that it always twists, and then you end up with really weird pockets. So your pocket should look a little bit like this. You can see I have stitched it on, and you can also see it here. So what you are going to do now is take your scissors and cut around here to get rid of this extra space here, because you don't need this fabric anymore. Let's not resist a good little Oh dear, so satisfying. And now we're going to add the little tag. So you want to leave at least 2 centimeters, so 6/8 of an inch here for seam allowance, and also so that it's not like right next to the zipper, but you need at least your seam allowance, and I would add a centimeter, so 6/8 of an inch, 2 centimeters at least before you put your tag. I have sewn this with a very, very small zigzag stitch. Normally you could do this basically with a straight stitch, but I wanted something that looked a bit like a frame. I'm super happy with how this looks, like super, super chuffed. Okay, if you are here, it's because you want a zipped pocket in your bag, and I will not sugarcoat it. This is the most technical section of the video, but you know what? You can definitely do this. So for this, you're going to grab one of your sides. If you have done the first pocket with me just now, then obviously take the other side, otherwise any will do. And take the piece of fabric I told you to cut in the instructions. If your fabric is like mine, and this is a cotton satin, it's not really sturdy, you know, interface it. I almost didn't do that, but because I knew you guys were watching, I felt like I had to, and honestly, that's the right decision. In my first bag here, the inside is a cotton canvas, so it's very thick. Honestly, this is so thick. So this I didn't line because it's a very sturdy fabric already. You just need for it to be able to hold keys or whatever you're going to put in it and not get holes. So if your fabric is very lightweight like mine, interface it. If you have something more sturdy, you might get away with not doing it. So you're going to turn your piece this way around, and we are going to measure your zipper, and we're going to trace a rectangle here. What we're making is a little window, a post box opening to fit your zipper. And so that opening that you are going to trace here, that rectangle, needs to be long enough to go from the zipper stops here at the top, so you can see them here. So you know you have a few millimeters all the way down your zipper, and to include the stop. Honestly, here I could have gone, you know, a few millimeters shorter. It would have been even neater. And so you want the stop, and you want the stops here. This is the little window here. So all the numbers you need. This is 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch. So from the top, you're going to trace your first line. This is going to depend on the length of your zipper. So look at the teeth and the stop and trace it. And then you're going to trace the next side of the rectangle at 1 centimeter away. So 3/8 of an inch. Then you just close your rectangle. And then you're going to trace a line in the middle, and then to help you, little angles like this. Obviously, try to have this centered. It's not the end of the world if it's not, but it's going to be nicer if your zipper is centered. So try to have that centered. And once you have all of this traced, we are ready for the next part. While you are tracing this, I'm going to add a new stop onto this so that my zipper is ready to go. We now have our interfaced piece with our letterbox, our piece of fabric here for the pocket, and we are going to place it about like this. Okay, I'm going to have to put it nice and straight and in the middle as soon as I'm not holding you anymore. But basically what you want is to give yourself a generous centimeter to 2, so between 3 and 6/8 of an inch of space here at the top, and place your letterbox somewhere. Basically you can look and see where your letterbox is, and the space you're going to give yourself is the space you'll have for the pocket. Imagine if you put the zipper down here, which first would be very uncomfortable to unzip, but you see my point. Then you'd have only this much of a pocket. It would be very, very shallow. So the higher you go, the deeper your pocket is going to be able to be. You just don't want it too close to the top here, because obviously you want to be able to have a bit of a seam allowance and space, you know, to not have the zipper right at the top. But taking into account we have an inch here, a generous centimeter, whoop, like this, seems about right. Make sure everything is straight in the middle, aligned everything, and pin all around this. Pin it all to death so that it holds. This is pinned. We are now going to stitch all around the main rectangle. So not the line in the middle, just around the main rectangle. Make sure your corners are really, really sharp. I'm showing you in a second how to do those. And start at the center in the middle. Don't backstitch, just go all around. And then when you arrive, you can go over a few backstitch, and that's it. This way you avoid too many layers of thread there. Okay, here you're going to take your time. This is not a race. You want to make this well. So I'm going to start no backstitching, going very slow to make a straight line. Now I arrive at the corner, I slow down and I go manually with my wheel to make sure I'm planted right in the corner. And here I'm going to lift my presser foot, pivot very neatly. Here that's really the key for having something very neat at this point, is to make the angle in one go, very, very sharp. Here I go slowly, I go wheel. So here I see that I'm gonna overshoot it slightly, so I'm going to lift my presser foot and move back so that the needle goes right in the corner. Lift back, back down, and back slowly and carefully all around. The only thing you want to remember is that once you reach back the start of your sewing, you go over about 3 stitches and then back stitch. Okay, and now I'm going to cut on the line I traced, not all the way to the end. I'm going to cut all the way to the little angle I've created here, and then I'm going to cut into the corner and into the corner. So the most difficult part is the first cut, because you need to go right in the middle. Here we are. And following the line to the angle. Okay, crucial moment right here. I'm going to cut on the angle here. So I'm going to cut into each corners as close, in capital, as close to the stitch line as possible, because this is what is going to give you a neat corner. Don't snip your stitch line, because then you are in a lot of troubles, but go as close as you can. If this is your first time doing this, don't sweat it. It's fine. You're never going to go and put your nose onto this. So in a sense, the inside of a bag is the perfect moment to practice those skills. Now, you take your interface piece and you make it go through the letterbox. And you're going to press this so that it's a little bit neater than what it is now. So press it open so that you have that little letterbox opening here. Yeah, not too bad. Going to sewing school is useful. Who knew? What we're going to do now is take the seam allowance and top stitch it to the back here. So we're going to take this long one, top stitch it to the back, and this long one and stitch it to this small bit here. So the 2 seam allowance, you're going to understitch them. Understitch, that's the proper word. You're going to understitch them on the interfaced side. Don't bother about the small sides, just the long ones. It's very good. Take your time, do it nicely. It's not a race. Okay, so that's top stitched. The front is still looking like this. So now, going to take a letterbox opening, make sure you have the rounded side facing up, so the inside of the bag, not the inside of the pocket. So basically, I am putting the zipper in the letterbox. Let me show you this from above. So now it looks a little bit like this, and I'm going to pin all around, and then basically all it is, really all it is, we're going to top stitch at 1 or 2 millimeter around the zipper. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If you just want it done, if you are old style Noémie, it's fine. You just pin it and you go. If you are a new style Noémie who's trying to do things very neatly, it took a while to have the stops at the top matching fine, and this one, that's how it is. Now we're going to top stitch all around this. Okay guys, motivation was definitely running low, but it's top stitched, so it looks a little bit something like this. If you are also here, congrats, and I just want to tell you the hardest is behind us. All we have to do now is fold this like this, make the corners match, and we're going to sew all around from here to here to here. So your pocket is shut and looks a little bit like this. Now we're going to do steps you're going to recognize, which is pin here, pin there, So from the center front all around within the seam allowance, so 0.5 centimeters, so 1 to 2/8 of an inch. Same on the other side, so first this way, then that way. Then we're going to cut the extra little bit that are sticking out here. Let's do this. And congrats, you have made a zipped pocket in lining. It looks a little bit like this on the wrong side and like this on the right side. How cool. So now that you have all of your pieces, we can go and actually start constructing this bag, finally. So now we're going to grab one of your lining pieces, your zipper, and one of your main fabric pieces. So I like to align the top of the zipper tape with the start of my fabric. I'm going to take my zipper tape. The tape is right side up, so I can see the little pull here. And I'm going to pin this on my lining. And because I'm lazy and I don't actually pin, I'm just going to clip it. Also, feel free to sew first the lining and then the top separately if it's the first time you're doing this. So here you are, lining is clipped. And now I'm going to take the right side of the fabric and add it on top like this. So the outside of the fabric is right side against right side of the zipper, and the lining is right side of the lining against wrong side of the zipper. The right side is against the right side, and then on the other side you have the lining. Now you're going to switch to your zipper foot and stitch along the zipper teeth. Don't hesitate to move the pull around once you are sewing so that it's not in your way and creating bulk when you sew next to it. So don't hesitate to first move it down like this. You sew the first part and then you pull it back to do the end. That's going to make it a lot easier. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised with what's about to happen. So on the right side of the zipper, I put the right side of the fabric, and on the wrong side of the zipper, I put the right side of the lining. We sandwich it all and we sew it. This is where we are. We have one side with the zipper pull and the outside of the fabric, and the side with the lining. What we are going to do now, and we're going to do it slowly and carefully, pulling the lining and pulling the top of the fabrics and top stitching. And the reason why we're doing this is for the fabric not to come and get caught in the zipper. So you can really go 0.5 centimeter away from the zipper to make sure that it gives you enough space so that the fabric is really clear from your zipper teeth and doesn't come and get caught when you open and close your zipper. A good way to have the right distance is to change to the normal presser foot and to kind of use the width of the presser foot as a guidance. That can be very helpful. Be careful about your lining because it might shift under you and you're not going to realize, so go slow and steady, and top stitch on both sides of the zipper. I'm going to press this side gently to help with the lining falling properly, but I'm going to be careful because I don't want to melt these zipper teeth, I don't want to melt these zipper teeth, and I also don't want to crush the velvet on the other side, so I'm really going to go just a little bit, helping this to lie flat so that the top stitching is going to be nice on the inside as well. So this is top stitched and that's what it looks like on the inside. So now we're going to baste together everything. So we're going to literally stitch all around the outside just to make sure that those two layers hold together, and it's going to be a little bit easier to move afterwards. So you can follow kind of this line here, same as the past, stay within the seam allowance. You stitch all around. You can even go over your zipper. Just be careful if there's a metallic zipper stop in your way. Don't break a needle. Go slow and steady. And the same here. What you can do is pull this down and you go over here. Make it one big crepe. So now you're going to grab your 2 squares of fabric. You can't mix them up with any other pieces because they're the only tiny ones. And basically what we're going to do is put it long side down like this and put our strap here. So if you actually followed the instruction for the strap length, I can already tell you, you can just do a little mark at 1.5 centimeters. So that's going to be 1/2 inch. But if you have a different size of strap, you might want to check. Basically what you want is your strap nicely in the middle, 1 centimeter seam allowance on either side of your strap. So for me, That's 1.5 centimeter, about 1/2 inch on each side. You're again going to mark the seam allowance here. So on the bottom, seam allowance there and there, and on the top, the width of your strap plus the seam allowance on either side. I like to check that if you have a corduroy fabric like me, that the naps is going down. Find it always nicer when it's all in the same direction. So here I can feel that if I stroke it that way, it's comfortable. That way it's going against the hair. And now I'm basically going to cut. You can trace it if you want to, but I'm just going to cut the line here and the line here. So it's going to give you something like this. And because I'm lazy, I'm cutting double layered, as you can see. So this is what you're making, little pyramids that have the seam allowance there. On this. So we are now going to use our little pulley things. So we use the base, the longer side. We put right side against right side, making the middle match with the zipper, which is why I did sew over the zipper so that it would be short. So it's much easier by now. And then for the lining, same thing, right side against right side, and you make them match perfectly on either side. So you have something like this. So I'm going to sew this at a usual seam allowance and do the same on the other side. That clip apparently got lost, but the next step is to top stitch what you have just stitched. So it looks a little bit like this and like that on the other side. And it's the moment to grab the bottom of the bag, lining and outer fabric, as well as the 4 extra tabs we have already cut. Editing Noémie, I actually want to re-explain because this was very difficult to film and I realized it might not be clear enough. So what I want you to do now is to grab your bag and look at the curved piece and to measure from tab all the way to the next tab, so the curve, how long it is, because actually the measurements I gave you for the bottom piece was a little bit too generous, and the reason is the curve you are going to draw might be different to my curve because no curves are equal, so I didn't want you to be too short for the bottom. But if you keep the piece as it is, it might be too long, and once you have the tabs you are going to be in trouble. So before adding the tab, it's the moment you get your measuring tape out, you quickly check the length of the curve. You had 1 centimeter seam allowance on each side, so that's 3/8 of an inch on each side, and that gives you the total that you need to keep for your bottom piece. This way when you add the 2 tab, it's now going to match perfectly the bottom of your bag, and the tabs are going to match the tabs on the other side. Okay, so we're now going to put this aside for a moment. We first need to create the pleats because obviously you can see there is a lot more fabric here than here. So you are going to take this, fold it in 2, take your tab, fold it in 2, match the sides of the 2 of them, and then pinch where the tab ends. And where it's pinched there, you are going to stitch a small line, like so, here. And then you are going to flatten it and open it like this. And make sure that it's spread evenly, you know, not like this, not like that, evenly between the 2 sides. And then I come place this right side against right side so that it's ready to stitch at 1 centimeter seam allowance. And I do this on both sides of the lining and on both sides of the main fabric. Once that is done, you can leave on the side the one that's in the lining, and the one in the main fabric you can top stitch here on both sides. And now that this is top stitched, we are going to grab both sides and attach them together the same way we have been doing. So attaching them within the seam allowance so that those 2 become only one piece. And little extra tip, I actually put both seam allowance in different directions. So the one of the main fabric is top stitched towards the tab, but actually the other one, I did put it the other direction so that there wouldn't be too much bulk with the 2 seam allowance, and they're like this. Here we are, they are attached together. So now we have the bottom that's all ready to go. Okay, so we have the bottom attached in one piece and the sides / top attached in one piece. Now we open the zipper. Do not forget to do this. Open the zipper. You will regret otherwise. And we are now going to attach right side against right side from the tab. We are not going to close off the top, so attach only this and then attached all the way to the side. I will show you once it's pinned so you can see properly. But so right side against right side, we are going to see the lining while we do this and leave the openings there. So I start with only one side, just easier. I attach the tab and then I find the middle. I mark it with a, and then I find the middle of this and I match them up and then I clip all around so that it shuts. So this is how we attach it. I personally do one side and then the others just because I don't have enough clips. But don't forget to leave this open, otherwise you shall regret it later. And by the way, if you wanted piping on the outside of your bag, so the brand we are taking our inspiration from has piping there. If you want to add piping, this is the moment, but I don't do the piping in my versions. Just little FYI, if you wanted piping, now is the moment to stick it in. So I'm going to stitch all of this at 1 centimeter seam allowance, pin the other side, stitch that, and then I'll show you where we're at. So this is what it looks like now. I have left it open, as I told you several times, and there's still little openings here because we are going to slide the straps in. But before doing that, and like once we are at the straps, we are literally reaching the end. But beforehand, we are going to neaten the seams here, and we are going to do this with the bias tape we have saved. So the way we are going to do that, we are not going to start the bias tape around the tab here. I'll show you what we do with it later on, but we are going to start placing the bias tape from the curve here. So we go right side against right side, and you can place your bias tape like this and sew it all around and come back when that is done. So what we have is this. The bias tape is half placed, as you can see. And what we are going to do is fold it once, fold it over, and stitch to enclose the seam allowance fully. It's probably best to pin this before you go. And this is what it looks like once a bias tape is fully placed. Very neat. We have one last thing to do, which is to place the strap in, and I will quickly show you how to make your own strap if you want to follow the fabric strap option. If you have bought your own strap, go to the next chapter directly. I will show you here. This is obviously not as wide as the fabric strap you had to cut, but basically you're gonna fold in and iron properly 1 centimeter seam allowance on this side, the same on that side, 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once the 2 seam allowance are pressed correctly, you're going to fold it on each other to create a nice, neat piece of fabric like this. And then you're going to top stitch on the left and on the right when it's actually made out of fabric. So this is what it looks like. You can see the corner where I have folded both seam allowance, and this is the folded side. But you can see I have top stitched both sides, so it looks very neat and very flat. So this is all it takes to create your own strap. With the seam allowance I've given you, that gives you a 4 centimeter wide strap, which is about the same one I told you to get if you got a store-bought strap. If you want a thinner one, no worries, just make the seam allowance a little bit bigger. You don't even have to recut it, just fold them in a little bit more, and then when you fold it into, it's going to be a bit smaller. So you don't have to follow the size I gave you. I gave you the size I prefer, but you can make it a bit smaller if you want to. Changing room as we are chasing the light. I will actually first quickly show you if you are using your strap, being your own fabric strap or this one. If you do not want the buckles, and that's what I have on my first bag, the small one that I have shown you, you're going to take your strap, place it in until you see it pop up on the other side, like this. I generally leave a bit like this, 1 centimeter. You do the same on the other side, like this. And then what I tend to do at this point is to turn the bag the right way around to check that the strap hasn't twisted, because once it's sewn, it's sewn. Do absolutely check first that your strap isn't twisted. So clip it on both sides, turn it the right way around, and see that your strap lies the right way. It's also the right moment to check the length, as you won't be able to adjust it anymore. Check that you like the length and everything before you sew it, like we are going to sew the next parts. That's for a strap that is not adjustable. For the adjustable strap, we are going to cut a small loop like this, put it in this loop and pop that in the same way until you see about 1 centimeter, like this. And for the other side, it's much easier. You can just pop it in like this, and you do not need to worry about if it's twisted or not because it's not attached to anything yet. We're going to sew this, so at 1 centimeter seam allowance here. You can see I'm leaving a bit extra, but this is because I feel more secure like that. So sewing both at 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then we're going to trim the corners here because we're going to need to turn this around. And what I personally like to do is also to zigzag all of the edges until we reach the bias tape, because all of this is still raw. It should be fine because it's going to be in the strap up there, but just for extra safety, going to zigzag all of those raw edges here. Let's go and do this. A quick sewing line here, and then zigzagging all around and clipping the edges. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, I have zigzagged all around here, and this is stitched. So now we're going to turn this the right way around. We take our strap, we make sure it's not twisted. We take the slider, this is the top. Go in the first hole on the other side of the bar. We then go into the buckle like this. I'm going to create a bit of space in the slider. Going in the first side, going around on the other side, like so. So as you can see, we went here, inside this way around, both sides, and we're going to stitch this, and the bag is finished.
Yeah!
And that's it. Normally now you have either a mini or a medium bag, and I hope you love them. I had to make a big one because I actually put so much stuff in my mini all the time that I ended up busting the zipper. So I hope that now that I have a bigger one, it's going to fit my book and everything I need. I'm really excited because my first one wasn't waterproof either, and this one is going to be. So if you are also now the proud owner of a half moon bag and that you love it and you thought that this tutorial was well done and useful, maybe you want to tip me a coffee, that would be very much appreciated. If this is not in the card for you today, it's fine. I'm happy to have shared this knowledge with you guys and to make it possible for you to make your own bag. I hope you love it, and if you make one, make sure to tag me on Instagram so I see it. I'm Sews. So yeah, and honestly, I have made now 4 of those bags, and everyone who has them loves them, and I love mine, so I'm very, very happy. The corgi has pretty much decided to be the star of this whole video. Sorry that I can't get rid of him. And yeah, what do I want to say? Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to come back for more, and don't forget that you can make anything, including super cool half moon bags. I really hope you like them, and I shall see you next week. Bye. Which is actually stuffed with all of my socks in order to give it shape. Here we are, normal shape. Hey, my god, if this video came out late, it's because you probably can't tell, but I have a little voice issue. I had a Christmas party with my family. I have 7, oh my god, I have 7 nieces and nephews, and they have got the best of me. They won. I'm sick. So I will start filming the hands and everything, but the voice, even though I'm sure you'd love this as a tutorial, the voice kind of have to wait. So I don't know when the video is coming up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a like,